What did a kid in your school do to get expelled? Story 1. Well, technically this does not count because they were never caught, even though the police were called in to investigate, but this is some next level crap. So we have classrooms called temporary classrooms. I don't know if you have them in other countries, but they're small, separate classrooms that were made out of a dense type of drywall. So during our official test period, they store all the tests in one classroom. So these tests have been marked, but not revised, and have therefore not gone through admin yet. So Monday we come back at school, and during assembly with the entire school, which we had every day, our headmaster is angry as frick. He's genuinely a nice guy, but at this moment he's bright red and shivering with anger. Apparently, a student snuck into the school and put a fire hose through a cracked window and flooded the whole classroom. A teacher later told us that the tests were literally adrift in the water. The classroom sustained a crap load of water damage as well, and after no one came forward, the police started a vandalism investigation. All the appliances in the class were also ruined, and some of the files of the teacher to whom the class belonged got damaged, and she had to do everything over. They never found the culprits, and used some of our assignment mark for the subjects in which tests got completely destroyed. Also, our disciplinary teacher lived in the house adjoined to the school. He has sheep. Every year, a group of students carry on the tradition of painting the school's roof and painting his sheep and letting them onto the school grounds. Each year, they get suspended for a week. A group of guys also put silicone into the key slots in all the doors. The silicone dried overnight, and we weren't able to get into our classrooms. They had to remove the doors completely. We got the whole morning off, and he got suspended for a while, but left a legend. In 10th grade, someone set a wooden cupboard in our class on fire. The cupboard was burned down, and that side of the class was black as heck. No one got caught, and it was very mysterious. There were cigarette packets outside the window. The tube lights were removed and put under the desks. Story 2. He stole a butcher knife from the cafeteria kitchen and attacked a teacher with it. They tried to subdue him. This is the era before school resource officers/school shootings, and someone pulled the fire alarm. We all evacuated the building. In the ensuing scuffle with the principal, he dropped the butcher knife, but grabbed all the plastic knives and forks from the cafeteria. He ran outside to where we were standing and threw them at us. Since they were cheap plastic, nobody got hurt. He was eventually tackled by the gym teacher and principal and then carted away in an ambulance. Kid never came back to school. The school also decided that banning plastic knives and forks would prevent this incident from happening again, so they replaced all plastic silverware with sporks, which is the real tragedy. Kid did get the mental help he needed and has gone on to be a productive member of society. A kid in my primary school who was a bully ended up getting expelled because he threatened to end my brother's life with a plastic knife. Story 3. 2 kids were dealing drugs out of their lockers. One had a locker upstairs, and the other's locker was downstairs. Everyone who bought drugs knew the combinations. People were told which locker had their merch, and when you had class on that floor, you'd get a hall pass and stop by the locker. A teacher got suspicious of seeing multiple kids going to the same locker. I will never forget being in class and getting the lockdown announcement while drug dogs were brought in and seeing one of the kids flying down the hallway toward his locker. Should have used gym lockers. Problem is, it would restrict buyers by gender. But if you really did have a significant customer base in the other gender, you could use gym lockers for one gender and regular lockers for the other and cut down on foot traffic to any individual locker. That commenter sounds like they've done this before. Honestly though, I think I understand what the dealers were thinking with this plan. They probably figured that by leaving everything in their lockers, they wouldn't have to risk being seen with the stuff on them. It makes sense in theory. The problem is that teachers noticing how many students were going to the locker was always the far more likely possibility. I'm surprised they brought dogs in rather than just searching the locker. But either way, this plan was doomed from the start. Story 4. In the canyons near our housing, there was lots of old World War II ordnance from when it was a proving ground. Lots of people collected the mostly harmless dummy ordnance. However, some kids found a mortar round, and it blew up while they were playing catch with it. 2 of the 3 kids didn't make it. So the alarm went off to turn in whatever you had. They found some really impressive collections. So the fire department and Army Explosives Ordnance Disposal Unit came to our school to show us some examples of what we could come across. As we sat in the bleachers of the gym, this kid stands up holding what appeared to be a shiny aluminum softball and asked if it was anything. The EOD guys froze, and we all had to evacuate. Turned out to be from a cluster bomb. Never seen that kid again. Story 5. A kid and friend egged the school from an airplane. It was crazy. The one guy's dad had a Cessna or something with a private strip in the middle of a fields. One night they went to the egg farm next door, stole a bunch of eggs, then took off in the airplane in the middle of the night. Apparently they did manage to drop eggs around the school, but early in the morning the fog set in and they couldn't find their way back to the landing strip. They ended up flying very low around town, which post 9/11 freaked everybody out. One of the hotels was evacuated. Eventually they were arrested and expelled from school for it, but I think it took a while to figure out what happened. Story 6. Ooh, this is a good one. One of the teachers in my high school was born without his right arm from his elbow down. He was the new English teacher, pretty young, good-looking or whatnot. We also had another new female teacher come in that year who was quite attractive. If you've ever heard of the movie Teeth, it's about this girl with teeth in her vag that, eats things or whatever. Anyway, some kid photoshopped both of their faces onto the movie poster and made it say, Mr. Blank didn't always have one arm. The picture got around quite fast, and I went to Catholic school, and this was a big no-no. The kid was super smart, too. What a shame. Absolute mad lad. He was expelled for that? I think most people would expect, and possibly even agree with the need for disciplinary action of some kind, but expulsion is beyond extreme for something like this. That's the problem with a school like this, though. And to clarify, I don't mean Catholic school, but private school in general. They're setting more of their own rules. And while they can be fantastic when it comes to things like class sizes, they can also be insanely strict. For instance, if a depressed student hurts themselves, some boarding schools are more likely to expel them than to find help, because their primary concern is simply to avoid the PR catastrophe of having a kid's body hauled off campus. Story 7. I'm from the Midwest. This was the mid-90s. A middle schooler went bird hunting over the weekend. He still had shotgun shells in his coat jacket on Monday. No weapon, just the shells. When he got to school, he realized the shells were there and immediately turned them into the principal. He was suspended from classes until the board made their decision and was eventually expelled. Kid made an honest mistake, did the right thing to correct the mistake, and was punished to the maximum for it. This has to be the stupidest reason. Just shows that the schools do not value honesty as much as they say they do. Story 8. I came back after a 2-week holiday. I'd missed the last day before we broke up for Christmas to discover that a person in my friendship group had been catfished for nudes by this guy in the year above, who had then posted them on social media. He took a hockey stick to the school library on the last day of term, destroyed his laptop, and broke his jaw and collarbone. Got expelled pretty quickly after that. But the kid who posted the photos got no repercussion, even though it was child pornography. I'd call a broken jaw and collarbone some pretty serious repercussions. Story 9. Very weird kid in my year at the time came into school with huge amounts of hairspray in his hair, the amount where your hair eventually sticks like gel, but without actually using any. Guy that sat behind him in one of our classes happened to be one of the worst behaved kids in the school, and he proceeded to get out his lighter and light his hair on fire. It didn't go up like if it were oil, but it definitely stayed alight long enough to see him running out the door with his hair smoking. Both kids were gone after that. Both kids? I get that the pyro was probably arrested or expelled, but what happened to Ace Ventura? Did he even survive? Did he finish out the school year in the hospital? Was he just too embarrassed to come back and let his classmates see him after everything that had happened? Because, to be honest, I could kind of understand if he wasn't too comfortable being at that school anymore. But the reason it's an important question is that, after some of these stories, it's getting to the point where I'm not even sure how shocked I'd be if it was revealed that the victim somehow got in trouble too. Seems to happen from time to time. Story 10. One kid came into the school and shot a bunch of students with a BB gun. He was a pretty troubled kid. Later on, he ended up going to the same high school as me, did the same kind of stupid crap, dropped out in grade 11, and I didn't know what happened to him for many years. Recently, though, I found out he's gotten his act together by the sounds of it, owns his own construction company, and dropped the drugs. Seems to be doing all right. Unexpected ending. Story 11. My brother got expelled for mooning the teacher in the middle of class. I almost did too, for figuring out how to open the console on our lockdown computers and running a command that made "I'm Rick James Biscuit" pop up on every screen in the school during standardized tests. Okay, your prank is hilarious though. I'd bet that at least some of the teachers thought so too, even if they couldn't admit it. Story 12. Oh, this was me. I got expelled from my charter middle school for being a witch. I was really into astrology, and some people who didn't like me accused me of having a curse list. It was a list of kids who wanted me to read their palms and do tarot card readings for them. My mom was cheesed because she thought it was stupid that I was getting expelled on the word of 3 12-year-olds and on the basis of witchcraft. I'd ask if this OP went to school in Salem, but they would more likely celebrate that sort of thing there nowadays. This sounds like the kind of thing that only really goes down in Bible Belt states like Texas. And if the OP was actually pagan, they could have accused the school of discrimination and possibly gotten a settlement out of it. That's a lot of effort, and I don't normally recommend lawsuits, even when justified, because of the time and money that goes into them, along with the fact that they just perpetuate most disputes. But in this case, the school might have deserved it for stupidity alone. Story 13. When I was in 3rd grade, some kid got expelled for bringing knives to school for protection. He was a bit of a hothead. He never used them on anyone, but all the kids knew he had one on him at all times. When he got caught a few weeks into it, his parents were called in, and apparently they were trying to justify the kid having the knives at school. Most kids never saw him again after he went to the office that one day. Story 14. My friend left his BB gun and pocket knife in his backpack by accident. The police did a random search of certain classrooms that day, and his room was picked. Quite frankly, when I found out, I was not surprised that he was expelled. What I was surprised about was that he didn't get expelled for marijuana possession or setting off fireworks in the middle of the amphitheater. On the latter, I was disappointed. Story 15. This one kid activated the fire alarm 4 times this one day, and the school had to be evacuated each time. This other kid got access to his class's gradebook. He stole the book and lit it on fire, I think. He got expelled. Some other guy destroyed every speaker in every classroom. Some other student kicked a ball in a teacher's face and broke her jaw on purpose. My school was messed up. That might be the understatement of the century. Was this a school for troubled youth, or were they literally evil? Because I'm pretty sure the entire population of Slytherin hasn't gotten into as many evil hijinks as the kids at this OP school. That said, the one with the grade book sounds a little ridiculous. I'm guessing he burned the book because he had a low grade? Well, good. He deserved a low grade, because he had his hands on the book, and the idea of simply changing his grades never even occurred to him. What an amateur. Story 16. He crushed a canister of pepper spray with pliers until it exploded. They evacuated the entire school and shut down that wing of the school for 3 days until the city and school district cleared it for safe use. If I recall correctly, it hospitalized one student for a few days and earned the guy some juvie time and hefty fines. That area of the school smelled like old fish and bleach for weeks afterwards. Story 17. I live in a rural-ish Irish town, and our school was built next to a massive wheat farm. One day, a kid brought in a plastic bottle filled with gas and matches. He hopped over the fence at lunchtime and set the field on fire, destroyed the farmer's entire plot. Apparently, it was about $500K worth of crops. He also served time. It was pretty wild. Story 18. Threw a chair at our pregnant teacher in year 5. I also went to his house to play because our moms were friends, and he beat me up so badly, kicking my stomach in until I puked in the car ride home, and my mom came running in screaming. I'm also a girl, so it's not like we were rowdy boys play fighting. Never seen that kid since. You probably haven't seen him because he's in jail somewhere. Maybe not. People can definitely change over time, especially when we're talking about the way he acted around age 9 or 10. However, I'm just guessing that a guy who seems to specifically target women for his violence wouldn't have been given much of a chance once someone finally called the cops on him. And if that happened when he was old enough, he might have even been tried as an adult. Story 19. When I was in high school, a kid sprayed pepper spray in the school ventilation system. It was kind of a big deal because the school doesn't have any windows that open. The school had to be evacuated, and I think we got to leave a few hours early. I knew the guy. Typical trash. He eventually got hooked on drugs. No idea what he's doing anymore. Story 20. He could fart at will by sucking air into his butthole and then letting it rip. He once tried it under the shower after PE. Well, it turns out that if you suck water with your butthole, you end up shooting watery poo bombs. We were laughing our butts off to this crap cannon until one guy went to tell the teacher and he had to go and clean it up. Story 21. A kid got high on meth and stole a bus. He did a few donuts in the parking lot, then drove away, only to get it stuck in a ditch. So he walked back to the school to take a second bus to go pull the first bus out of the ditch. The police were waiting at the first bus when he got there. It's not at all surprising that the police were at the bus when he got back. However, how did this dude manage to steal a bus and do a bunch of donuts, then come back and take a second one? At that point, wouldn't everyone be on fairly high alert? This guy had brass ones to even try this, although I guess the chemicals running through his veins are to be thanked for that. Stay away from that stuff, kids. No matter what you might think of anti-substance PSAs for other things, this one legitimately serves no purpose other than making you clean, making it impossible to climax, and driving you certifiably insane. Story 22. Bronx Zoo Trip. Some girl decided that she would not only decide to shoplift $100 worth of merch from the gift shop, but also kidnap a butterfly from the butterfly greenhouse in her backpack. She proceeded to squash the butterfly when she got home. Story 23. Beat up a girl, apparently. That was the last reason why someone got expelled. Before that, I've only heard from 2 cases where someone was expelled: a bombing/shooting threat, and threatening to end someone's life and their own if the other person didn't want to date them. Story 24. One girl I went to high school with stole some school letterheads and proceeded to make her own report cards all year. Super quiet girl. I had her pegged as the honor student type. I don't know if she got expelled, but I never saw her again. You had her pegged as the honor student type, so did her parents. Story 25. He stole an autistic kid's backpack full of books, took a crap in it, zipped it shut, and shook it up. He then bragged about it to one of his friends, so when the autistic kid had his freak out, it didn't take long for administration to figure out who had done it. Imagine having to tell your parents not only that you got expelled for bullying, and not only that your victim was disabled, but then having to dump on top of it that you did all this because you think poop is funny. It's the most childish thing you could possibly ruin your future over. Granted, it might not have disappointed them all that much. If he was the kind of guy to do all this in the first place, I'd wager they never had a whole lot of reason to have been proud of him before then. Story 26. Kid in my sister's class called in a bomb threat to the school from the school cafeteria payphone. This was in 1999, so before everyone had cell phones. He was arrested and expelled. Kids in my high school did the same stupid crap around the same time, too. Story 27. Kid sprayed bear spray all over the boys' bathroom. It spread through the halls, and more than 20 or 30 people got it in their eyes and mouth and had trouble breathing, including some of my best friends, who had to go home because they couldn't breathe. Story 28. Released 500 crickets into our school cafeteria, then proceeded to sit back and watch the madness. Resource officer caught as many as he could and ended up putting in the perpetrator's car via an open window. He had the last laugh. Story 29. He would poop in a bag and stick it in somebody's backpack. He did this twice. First time he got suspended and a warning. Second time he got expelled. This was in 9th grade. Story 30. Dude smuggled a wine bottle. How did the teachers find out? Well, the brass knuckles he was carrying in the backpack broke the bottle and spilled the wine in the middle of the classroom. This is why you only commit one crime at a time. What, pray tell, was this idiot going to do with brass knuckles and a bottle of wine? Did he expect things to end literally any other way than how they did? Was he going to drink at school and go around just punching folks? This combination of items in his backpack could have gotten him in 1,000,000 times more trouble than it did. It's unfortunate that he got expelled for what really feels like a suspension-worthy infraction, but he's still probably lucky that the bottle broke before he could do anything stupid. Story 31. At lunchtime, one kid managed to sneak inside the school library and made all the computers go on Cornhub. Shortly after that, they wore a white mask and took out a water gun, threatening to shoot the school if people don't bow down to him. Story 32. He targeted Jewish kids in school by removing their yarmulkes and biting their heads. After the 5th victim, the assailant was expelled. I don't know why the first 4 were unnoticed. Let me guess, he was failing art class. Story 33. A kid escaped school on a Gordon food service truck during recess. They found him hiding in the Uncrustable sandwich box while unloading the truck when they got back to their little warehouse. Uncrustables are life. Story 34. One of the special ed kids kept escaping the school, allegedly through a bathroom window, would strip down and try to play in traffic in front of the building. Chad. Story 35. Small private school. Kid sprinted and jump-kicked another kid into a door, splitting his head open for some reason I can't even remember. He was gone pretty quick after that. Sparta! Honestly, it's fine if this OP can't remember the reason. There have been so many psychopaths in this thread, it's just nice to hear there was a reason at all. This right here has got to be the most terrifying part of having children. You might have a little angel, or you might have one of these hot messes. And even if you have an angel, you'll be sending them out into a world full of train wrecks and mental cases. But the children are our future and deserve respect or whatever. Sure, moving on. Story 36. Some kid in my elementary school got expelled for dropping fireworks through a mail slot in the school front door, blowing the glass out of it. Elementary school. Story 37. After 9/11, my school had a huge memorial and planted a remembrance tree. Some kid peed on it and ripped it up the next day. Pee can't melt steel beams. Story 38. In high school, a gal decided to give her boyfriend a bejesus behind the math building in the middle of the school day, only to be discovered by a mentally handicapped student. Of course, only the girl was expelled for it. Story 39. He was special needs but got zero tolerance because he made a series of drawings about taking over the school with fart bombs. Story 40. Number 1, fire extinguisher battle in high school. 2, fox urine in the ventilation, also high school. 3, stood up on desk playing air guitar with pants and underwear at his ankles, elementary. A lot of people are interested in the third story, but I just want to know who won the fire extinguisher battle. Also, aren't fire extinguishers usually placed in pretty varied locations? Wouldn't they both have to come from different places? Because that means some time went by in between stealing the first and the second, during which no one noticed a missing fire extinguisher, or that these people had one. And I thought those things set off the alarm when you removed them, but I guess I had that wrong. As for the fox urine, I've got nothing to say. I wouldn't think it'd be strong enough to make much difference in the vents, but I've also never had to use it before. Thank goodness for that. Story 41. He was an all-around bully that nobody liked and was always getting into trouble. Final straw was that he was caught accessing someone else's grades and was making fun of the person for said grades. Story 42. He would call our middle school, making bomb threats back to back, and we often had to stay on the bus or evacuate to a nearby church until school hours were over. Story 43. A couple of guys yelled, "The Germans are coming," and went under the table during German class while the air raid alarm was going off for testing. Story 44. This dumb jerk broke into someone's house, stole their guns, then got busted trying to sell them to an undercover cop. He got expelled and arrested. Story 45. We were supposed to come up with a creative story for the basic assessment test that we were taking. His story was about ending the lives of several teachers. Did he seriously not know that he would get expelled for that? Or did he not so secretly want to get expelled? He clearly didn't like being in school very much, so it's a reasonable guess that this was actually what he wanted all along. It's nuts, but still quite possible. If there's one thing a lot of these stories have in common, it's that pretty much every kid who wasn't punished extremely or unfairly is in a class of people that it's probably safest to keep away from other kids. Forever, if possible. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.